Oh boy, it's that time of year again where I go, Naku weeds are purple, and make it into a video. I'm just kidding, I would never stoop that low.
You're lying. Why are you lying to me?
Only because you wanted me to.
Anyway, this is the third installment of random and useless things you probably already knew about in Genshin Impact. The background of the party setup varies depending on which region you're in. In fact, Sumeru has two different backgrounds depending on if you're in the forest or the desert. Though I do wish that Dragonspine got the same treatment. You can actually hear music from outside the flagship in Nasha Town. Interestingly enough, this music actually counts as a sound effect. I would know because I tried muting sound effects in my audio settings to hear the music better, and ended up going deaf instead. You can see the stars at night, but honestly, while this is nice, I think if we come back on a different day, it can be nicer. If you're wondering where I am to be seeing this, I'm just joking. You can see this from around the world, and it even changes color depending on what nation you're in. Here it is from Mondstadt, Liyue, Inazuma proper, the Sumeru Forest, and Natlan, which all look pretty much the same. But here it is from the Sumeru Desert. Here it is from Fontaine. Here it is from Natlan again, but this time it looks different. And here it is from NocRan. While riding the space elevator, you can't actually open any menus. No map, no wishing, no settings, which is certainly an interesting choice for the longest elevator ride in the game. How long is this elevator ride, you ask? And does it take the same amount of time going both ways? Well, riding the elevator down takes 1 minute and 42 seconds, while going up takes 3 minutes and 17. Now, I'm no astrophysicist, so you're gonna have to help me figure out why that is.
Is it A, gravity, or B, magic?
And speaking of the space elevator, if it's not at the International Space Station, you can space swim your way down the elevator shaft up to a certain point, after which the game is a dingus and disappointingly tells you to stop engaging in reasonless behavior. If you talk to Catherine and NocRan with Nefer or Yehoda, you can see one of those YouTube expose thumbnails, and just like in those videos, Catherine is under NDA and isn't allowed to share any classified information. But using some expert interrogation tactics I stole from the CIA, you can obtain intel that you can trade to Catherine. The ship furthest away from Dornman Port is completely empty, which can only mean one of two things. Either they were kidnapped by Somali pirates and their ransom still hasn't been paid, or it's a ghost ship. Wait, aren't those two like the same thing?
Same, but different. But still same.
The cannon's core in Nasha Town has some real jerky movement until it speeds up and approaches meltdown. You can go behind the counter of the general goods store as well as Good Hunter in Mondstadt, so the next time they say they're out of stock on ingredients, go back there and check for yourself. I'm gonna be the sole reason they install glass partitions like convenience stores in the hood. If you teleport to Mondstadt and look at the windmills, you'll notice that they'll change speeds really suddenly. And speaking of windmills, the ones in Mondstadt City have 6 sails, while the ones in Millhaven only have 5. And yes, I did literally just learn that those were called sails. There's a gang gathering in Nasha Town, which I've now joined. Apparently, they're going door to door trying to sell car insurance or something.
Wendy's!
Our people are your best insurance.
If you jump off the map in Enkonomiya and into the void, your characters lose their energy. In fact, if you jump off the map in your teapot, you get the same result. Meanwhile, if you jump off the Temple of Space, you actually don't lose any energy at all. And if you jump off the Ancient Sacred Mountain, you get saved by a Phlogiston Fireball. By the way, I'm testing all of this with Kirara because cats always land on their feet.
No! That is just a rumor spread by dogs!
My Wave Rider has been docked at Liyue Harbor for about 8 months now. There are 3 planters in the middle of the main road, if you can even call it a road, in Mondstadt, and they're the exact same, though the third one is flipped for some reason. Speaking of the planters, there's even one off the main road that's an amalgamation of the two. There are 9 tables outside belonging to this tavern in Port Ormos, and if you're wondering where the 9th one is, I just hope a customer doesn't actually have to eat here. Speaking of Port Ormos, there are all kinds of boats either in the waters around or docked here, 28 of them to be exact. They range from little dinghies that look like they're one small wave away from capsizing to giant merchant ships that are totally not being used to smuggle anything illicit. You can stand in the Fountain of Lucine in Fontaine, and while Shanyun can't actually jump in the center of it, Nahida totally can. And in case you were wondering, no, Neuvillette can't fit. I don't know why you were wondering that, but hey, I won't question your fantasies. The Palace of Alcazarzare is the place with the most A's in its name, coming in at a total of 7. Honestly though, I just call this place the Palace of Alcatraz. In the Opera Epiclese, the first floor has 7 rows of seats, while the second floor only has 2. There are 15 stools in the New Fontaine Research Institute, 6 of which are occupied by researchers who have never stood up once in their lives. The volcano in the Atokpan region of Natlan actually erupts and spews a bunch of molten hairballs at you like a cat that's gotten into the hot sauce. Compared to everyone else, Columbina has a very different jump animation while she's sprinting, which makes her look really elegant. There are still no short male characters in the game, but don't worry, short kings, for you shall rise up. Rise against this tyranny. Rise so that you may one day almost reach their shoulders on your tippy toes. Speaking of character models, there are 5 character model sizes and most of them stop sprinting in different ways. The tall males almost fully turn to the side while stopping. I literally can't tell the difference between how the tall and medium females stop, so maybe if I put them side by side, I'll see something. Medium males do a little hop at the end there, short females almost fall over, and Columbina is once again special. On Beto's ship, you can walk along that rope behind me, which in boat terms is called the forestay. All I know is that this proves I can't walk in a straight line. Trust me, I'm not inept. I swear it's harder than it looks. On Jinren Island in Inazuma, you can get stuck mid-plunge attack right on this little gap here. In fact, you can do this all around Tevad as long as the gap is small enough. Here's one in Port Ormos, and here's one in Liyue Harbor. While looking for other spots for the previous fact, I found these 2 boxes in NocRan that looked perfect for the job. Instead, what ended up happening was I just slipped in between like it was an ass crack. I did eventually climb out, or more accurately, I popped out like a hot dog in that world's fastest hot dog eater video. Thunderclap Reef in Nodcry is always rainy, night and day, 365 days a year. Or however many days are in a year on this planet. Some characters' bursts can change the color grading of the game. For example, Nivelette's burst very briefly gives a bluish hue before reverting back to normal. Nahita's is much more noticeable and you can actually step outside her burst radius to see the difference. Raiden's burst and Skirk's 7-phase flash darken the screen for however long they last, and Mawika's burst basically turns any time into sunset. Nahida can read people's minds, which I'm pretty sure is honestly some insane amount of invasion of privacy, but I guess she's a god so she can do whatever she wants. Flynn's is 600 or 700 years old. I genuinely wish I was making that up, but he literally says it himself.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think my brain just committed suicide.
Nicole blinks 13 times in 1 minute. The Metaverse Dottore weekly boss has a chance of dropping 1 of 3 anomalous tree marrows, which contains some deep and interesting lore that I'll surely read someday. Your character will actually turn their head towards interactable NPCs, animals, and practically every interactable object or entity. The unusual Hilichurl only spawns in Mondstadt and Liyue. I'm guessing he hasn't been able to get his Japan visa yet. You can hold a maximum of 2,000 of any food, and yes, the game counts normal and delicious dishes as separate. If you try cooking anymore, the game will tell you to stop being a fat ass and free up some space. Don't ask me why I have that many sweet madams, I'm stocking up for the hantavirus lockdown. You can caress the flowers in the Meliastra Wonderland lobby. Just don't do it too aggressively or they might start leaking out sap. Wait, what? Different characters will strike different poses when looking at their talents, so I decided to document all of the types. We've got arms crossed, contemplative male edition, contemplative female edition, hand on chest, 6'7", holding one hand out, one hand on hip, both hands on hips, permanently embarrassed, thinking child, and holding both hands in front, which is exclusive to only Nicole at the time of recording. One of Nicole's idol animations has 2 different cute chibis that pop up. I'm actually unsure whether or not there's a third, but after 20 attempts of trying to get a different one, I just assumed there were only 2. Kirara in her box cat form meows whenever she jumps. This is part of the reason why she's the best cat girl in the game. This statue of 7 in the distance in Nodcry looks like it's floating in the sky.
Magic.
Taller characters swim faster. That's no secret, but from what I can tell, there's no difference in how most of the character models move their arms while swimming, except for short female characters, who almost look like it's their first swimming lesson and they're trying not to piss themselves and drown in the shallow end. The sky around Amakumo Peak is the same during all times of the day. And speaking of Amakumo Peak, these orbiting rocks can't hit you, and are only visible above above a certain altitude. Go below them far enough and they'll disappear while the sun pops up over the horizon. Farina can't walk across the surface of the water that leads to Enkanomiya because you get teleported right before hitting it, much to my disappointment, because I think it'd be a pretty cool screenshot if she could. There are 18 species of catchable fish, which include 3 stingrays, depressed angelfish, which is what I like to call Nicole when she's drowning, a fish that looks like something Aino threw together in a scrapyard, only to forget she introduced an invasive species into the Fontanian ecosystem, and this thing, which looks so alien-like. The first thing that popped into my head was the alien from Alien Isolation. Sumeru has the most dangerous wildlife out of every region. Mondstadt has its wild boars, and NocRan has its pack of razors, but Sumeru has Floridian crocodiles, treetop tigers that like to jump you, Sumpter beasts who've aligned themselves with the enemy, scorpions who've aligned their stingers with your ass cheek, and flying snakes. Wait a minute, this is just the Australian outback. Speaking of the flying snakes in Sumeru, they drop something called mysterious meat, which isn't actually sold anywhere and is only obtainable by killing these abominations. The big gear you see when changing the in-game time has 48 teeth. Ningguang's office in the Jade Chamber has windows through which light shines very brightly during the day, and if you switch to nighttime, the light outside kinda just disappears like someone decided to switch it off. Mawika, ever the polite and considerate Archon, always reorients her bike in the direction you were facing after attacking. Due to the Frost Moon's reduced gravity, you actually fall slower and take less fall damage. For example, jumping off the Favonius Knight's headquarters just straight up kills Shan Yun here. But if she jumps off the high-speed transit station, which is a lot taller, she takes so little damage it might as well be a yellow card for simulation. Sorry, I just got done watching the Argentina vs Switzerland highlights, and wow, that dive by Embolo was incredible. Some characters' shields have an audio and or visual cue for when they get hit. For example, here's Nicole's. Here's Zhongli's. Here's Kirara's.
Let's light it up!
Inefa's shield actually sounds like a muffled video game dodgeball. And here's Noelle's, whose shield for some reason only has a visual cue.
Let's light it up!
Some shields even rotate with your character, which makes a shield like Inefa's look like a hamster ball. You can see the specific areas of Teyvat from outer space. For example, that's Natlan over there, and that's the Sumeru Desert where I send all of my wire-guided missiles. And speaking of Teyvat from outer space, you can actually watch it rotate. Teleporting around on the moon has a different sound effect than teleporting around on Teyvat. Prune is the first playable character added to the game whose name starts with the letter P. And on a similar note, there are no playable characters whose name starts with a U. In fact, it's the only letter in the alphabet left without a character. The more exhausted you are in space, the more muffled your sound effects get. While in zero gravity, if you drift straight down then stop, your character does a cute little flip to reorient themselves. There's only one of each type of ley line in each region at a single time. You can unlock little badges on Linnea's backpack, also known as Lumi's Pokeball, which you can see in-game. You can do this by first pulling for Linnea, then following her wildlife pamphlet, which qualifies you to listen in on her lectures.
This is a Saratoga nettle. They're extremely nutritious. I was incorrect.
Above the crafting station in NocRan, you'll see a very self-explanatory sign. You actually can't stand on the sign. Instead, you'll continue floating above it while the game tries to push you away. Why, Hoyoverse? Why? What's in the sign, huh? Bigfoot? Lohan's victims? Yehoda Secret's toner stash? Speaking of floating, you can glide right over the Stygian Onslaught flower and continuously float over it. In Domus Aurea, you can find groups of these glowing flying things that are called golden bees. I had to do a little bit of googling to find that out, but just in case I decide to capture one and hold it in a glass container, I'll at least have a label. There are 72 book series currently in the game. This is where all of you lore experts ask why all of them still have the new tag, and if I've even read any of them. To that I say,
Are you on drugs?
the Temple of Space memory core is completely intangible. something profound about memory fading or whatever. I don't know, I can't remember. You can find these mechanical beetles called subdetection units around Fontaine. They'll usually flash green, blue, or yellow, but go close enough to them and they'll start flashing red. And while you could collect them right away like a normal person, I'm a bit of a psycho, so I prefer to see them twitching on the ground first. Flynn's can be found at his lighthouse where he's taking a break from paperwork. You can even lie to him and say that you too have been filling out paperwork for the Adventurers Guild every day. In Nicole's library, you can find some magical floating books that avoid you like how a gacha player avoids the shower. And speaking of Nicole's library, you can actually still get to the top of it after completing the Witch's Lodge quests. Of course, I used the best exploration character in the game to do this, and I don't think the devs intended for people to get up here, considering we can't even sit in the chair. When using Sandrone's skill above water, she'll end up taking a few steps after the skill finishes, and during this window you can actually refresh it and keep going. Yes, you can even do it while sprinting, however, it doesn't work if you're holding a direction key. So on that note, it takes Sandrone roughly 9 minutes to float, I guess, from Inazuma to Liyue Harbor. And that's all the useless facts I've got for you today. Let me know which one you think was the most useless and whether or not I should do another one of these. Just kidding, I'll probably do another one regardless, but hey, comment it anyway and maybe YouTube will give me my family back. Anyway, gonna go back to hibernating. I'll see you all next time. Bye.